Giancarlo. Giancarlo. Wait, look, before I even introduce you, let me tell you something. Here we are on transatlantic with a fellow Italian citizen.
Bravo. Bravo. Buongiorno, buongiorno, buongiorno Simone. Peruvian Italian.
Yeah, that's awesome. Look, like offline, we already kind of went through our lives. And I know that your grandfather was from Genova. You have an Italian passport, but de facto, you grew up like in Peru. So that's pretty awesome though, because I watch you play bocce all the time from Instagram, and you're a marvel, man. Look, we had to have your transatlantic. So let's do this. Let's go through the 7 C's interview. I'm going to ask you the 7 questions, and we'll take it from there.
Perfect.
Ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, good. First question. I'm going to serve you with the words of an actor that spent years at the sea in a fictional way, being Jack Sparrow and Johnny Depp. When asked about the body of his work, he say, it's easy to say I love you, for instance, during an acting scene. But if it's not behind the eyes, if it's not in there, if it's not your truth that you apply to whatever form of craft you got, then it's bullshit. And the audience will see it. Now, do you think that your best work as Gian Carlo come from a place of truth? As he originated from personal experiences? In other words, do you put some truth in whatever you do, whatever product you are about to advertise?
Yeah, definitely. I think it comes to mind, I think, 2 keywords that are 2 keywords that I grew up with. I think I have to go back to my time in Peru. I was born 1983, so long time ago, and I grew up in Peru in Lima. Obviously, I was young on the 80s, and in the 90s, I would say I was a little, my 10 years, something like that, when you start being more conscious. But that definitely, Peru, now everyone talks about Peru, obviously the great food, Machu Picchu, the cultural reference, but I would say that 80s and 90s in Peru were one of the hardest times for a country in the world in general. Peru had the cholera. Obviously, it's one of the biggest, you would say, diseases that took out Peru. A pandemic. It's almost like a pandemic before COVID, right? So it's almost like I grew up in a time of a pandemic. Adding to that, there was terrorism. There was a big difference between, Lima, the main capital, the mountains, a lot of terrorism, obviously also drug trafficking, because obviously Peru is one of the, at the time, also biggest producers of coca leaf, hyperinflation, and Peru was at the time the country with highest hyperinflation in history. So you would go and buy bread. I remember my parents going to buy stuff, and one day, let's say a piece of bread is $1, and the other day is $10. So you lived at that time on a time of completely uncertainty. You didn't know. It was almost like you were just happy to be alive each day. Not now sounds ridiculous because the perception of Peru has changed a lot, but it was a time of being prepared for the worst. And I think that's something that comes whenever I think, or I do a creative idea, it comes out of a place of limitation. We never had, I would say, we also started there working in advertising. It's not that you have the big budgets that you have in New York or different places. Now, not even in New York, you get the big budget. So imagine how it's in South America. So you always had to create with a limitation. And that allowed us, I think, me, and I could speak for Rolo, my creative partner, but I'd rather speak for me because he's not here. It was all about taking a limitation, a brief that was limited, something where we have no money, we have no media buy, there's only this, or you have to do it, this needs to be released tomorrow. Think on something on 6 hours. So that made me, I think, really proactive and really never never waiting for the right brief. Like now I talk to people here, friends on different markets, like, oh yeah, but the brief wasn't right. It's like, dude, just make your own brief. We basically, okay, this is what we need to do. So you become a little more of a problem solver. And
I think this is like extremely useful what you're saying to like a young creative. And by the way, just let me just like congratulate like online immediately about the fact that you are being awarded like creative person of the year in 2023. So this is quite awesome to me. But when you say a place of limitation, it's true because I come from like a small country compared to like Italy it's such like a microscopic country compared to the market in the States, and so we are used to play with very very small budgets, and so every limitation we have is almost used to our advantage. So when you get then to play with bigger budgets, you bring that place of limitation into your creativity in whatever you do, and it actually makes you stronger. It's true, it makes you stronger. Yeah, that's a very interesting point.
Absolutely, I think that, and now seeing our best and worst work, I
Right.
think we did our best work when the brief wasn't that sexy, if we want to say.
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
and we bring that limitation, and I think most of the ideas we're more proud of. I think at our agency that is new, it has only 2 years. I think the work we've done for Dole, it's all like come out of limitation, like we creating a media using trash cans where where that's not a media to advertise,
Well,
things like
it's funny because I feel like it can be applied to any other field, right? Because if you think about it, like, when you are set up with a multi-million-dollar budget in a movie, not necessarily the movie is going to be like successful. Most of the time is actually unsuccessful. The indie movie, the one that came from the 90s and then like, bled over like, the new millennium, and the one that were made with small budget, they happen to be very very successful because they come from that place of limitation where like you are constantly pushing yourself to create like solutions to go around problem and issues, and that probably like improve the final product, the final outcome. Yeah.
I agree, and I think that I would say something I personally keep every time we face a brief,
Mhm.
or it's like, okay, what's the limitation? Let's what, and I think as creatives we're better. I think when we have a limited
Yes.
way to think than when we have all the options. No, I think the work has more meaning. No, I think when you, I mean, obviously there's great work using celebrities and stuff, but I personally, I haven't. I mean, I appreciate the advertising where it's a little more, where it doesn't have a celebrity, where it depends
Absolutely.
on the pure idea itself. You know.
Yeah. Second question, man. Anthony Bourdain traveled many oceans and gathered like an incredible amount of stories. So yet he once said, everything important I learned as a dishwasher. You show up on time, you stay organized, you clean up after yourself, you think about the people you work with, you respect the people you work with. Now, this statement is incredibly honest, authentic, and very dense as a statement. If I were to ask you, like, where you learn the most important lesson in advertising or in life in general, where would your answer be?
That's a great question. I think, and this comes is a little different from what I said before, but I think I learned my lesson the most when I was supposed to succeed and I didn't. It's
Mm.
almost like, and I have a great story for this. When we left Peru, we were in Peru. We did some really great work. We won the first AKQA Future Lions in Cannes. It was first year, and we were the first ones to win for Latin America. So we had a job offer to Singapore, and we moved to Singapore to work at the Saatchi and Saatchi agency. We loved our creative hero David Droga worked there. We were like, we're going there, we're gonna learn, and we did great work. And then we had a job offer to go to Wyden and Kennedy, that is like one of the best agencies in the world. And we're like, oh, this here is gonna be fantastic for us. And and actually we weren't that successful there. We they had a different way of doing work. We learned a ton because thank God I consider Wyden one of the best agencies in the world. But when we went there, they had a different way of doing work that was like based on writing a manifesto. At the time we could barely write. I could barely speak English, so imagine writing. It's more difficult. So I think going to a place where you're supposed to succeed and then you don't,
Yeah.
gave me like that idea of like, okay, that's it's always really humbling, a little bit disappointed at the time because you put a lot of pressure on yourself. And then we went to this unknown agency, smaller agency in Amsterdam called BSUR, where we had the chance to have the mini account, and we did some fantastic work with some great creatives. Our boss, Jason Schrager, fantastic. Paulo Martins, super great talent. And, you know, we did some really great work there from a place that wasn't really the most famous one, if you want to say. And I think that same thing happened now in a different shape. Um, on our when we opened our agency, it was like, oh, this is not supposed to succeed in paper, right? It's two creatives opening an agency in New York, where you know there's
It's so
it's
interesting. You know, I have a lesson that is very close to your lesson, and it's actually drawn from boxing. I'm like, you know, I do a lot of, like, I've been a fan of boxing since I can remember, like, you know, and I do a little bit of boxing on the side. And there is one thing that they say in boxing, like, you know, styles make the fights. It's not like who is stronger, who is faster. It's truly about the style. Style make the fights. You can have like a great fighter that is matched up with a very weird boxing, a very weird fighter that has a very weird style, and that fighter is gonna crumble. So truly style make the fight. And I think like when you are telling me the story of, like, you know, coming to Wyden Kennedy, facing like the typical American way of doing things, which is like, let's write a manifesto, let's like doing things. It's truly like a different style. So I think like to be unsuccessful, nothing changed in you. It wasn't like your creativity just like dropped. It was just truly a different style, and then you transfer to Europe, where it's actually different. So I think like it's the same. We learned the same lesson, because I was fortunate enough, because I was actually I'm a writer by trade. So for me to write a manifesto is actually a natural place to be. But I can totally hear you about that, because, and I say this all the time to creative young creative that wants to come to the States, it's truly a different style compared to Europe, compared to other place. So even before like picking up a plate or following a boss or following a person that you think is creative, I think you need to make sure that that particular place match your style. If it doesn't
absolutely.
match your style, you're gonna lose the fights.
And I
And
think yeah, that's adding to that, you know, like now I could write a proper manifesto, I would say, but there's skills that might that you weren't ready at the time, but you learn. So I think from that place we take a lot the learning, you know.
yeah,
So like it's how you also see the situation, you know. Oh, here we took learning. Maybe here we did great work. Here we did, but I think at the end, with me personally, it all shaped to maybe now that we created our own thing, and it has our own voice. It has a little bit of all these places where we were successful, not successful, and you know, you create a creative culture, I think.
yeah. Third question. A whirlpool is a body of rotating water produced by opposing currents. Some of the largest whirlpools, like Snow, they have like very weird name, can potentially sink an entire ship. Now picture a vortex of currents suck you in with no chance of getting out of this hole of water in the middle of the ocean. Now you and your partner start like one of the most successful agency of the past few years. Honestly, you guys have been like on an amazing run. Like, you know, what would be the equivalent of a whirlpool? What could be something like very, very dangerous for a young agency like yours that can suck you in and you disappear?
I think the more I talked also with, because when we opened the agency, it's not like, oh, let's just do it. We also talked to a lot of people that have done it, and you know, people we admire that now have like million-dollar agencies that are great, and people that also didn't really succeed. So I think what we learned of those conversations, and now that we have the agencies, like, to don't believe that you're the best. You are not the best at all. The context can change. You're good at something, and you'll keep evolving and being good at something. But I think creating that you're super successful because of or mainly awards or things that recognition is important, obviously. But I think you just have to keep being. I think the way we work, it's really humble, simple. We try to be always, solving a client problem. Sometimes you'll come with a great idea, sometimes with not a great idea, but at the end of the day, you're solving the business of the client. So I think as you focus on that, you're going to grow with the clients. Don't think you have the last word. You don't. There's always obviously it's a work coordinated with the client. I think we're successful because we had also great clients that backed the creativity. So I think the big whirlpool, as you want to say, is basically believe that you're the best when you're not. And I think also not being constant to the belief that you have on your agency. We know we're a small agency. We're 10, 11 people full time, and half of our agencies in South America. And we honestly believe we're a small player in the industry. There's a lot to learn. But we see it with eyes of opportunity. I think the way we see it, and it's how opportunity is guiding us. This is like a first step, but there's plenty of opportunity, plenty of growth. As long as we keep doing creative work, our agency didn't start with a managing director or a new business. It started with 2 creatives. So the only way we knew to get business was doing good work. That's the only way clients will notice us. If we do good work, they'll come to us because we don't have connections. We're not American. So it's like, we're doubling down on that. Even though that we're slightly bigger than 2 people, it's like we just have every project comes out of LNC needs to be as good as the last one. It needs to be interesting. And then clients will see the value of it and they'll end up calling us. So I think that that's the thing to believe, and don't let yourself suck on a whirlpool of
which it seems like such like a obvious thing to say, right? Like you say, oh, obviously don't believe that you are the best, but there is an insane amount of agency out there that believe and states that they are the best. The way they position themselves is like with the best, with the best, with the best. And I think like there is some kind of sickness, like even like in this culture that we live in, where you have to be the best. Like who is the best, who is the worst, who is the greatest, who is not the greatest, who come first. It's like there is always like thinking in these kind of terms is very like limiting, like in a very negative way to me. Like just accept like your position, your space, and your strength and weakness, and just go for it. Like let it roll. That's how it should be. But there is this like tendency of like displaying like your power in a very like unhealthy way. Anyway, good. Like 4 question, man. One of the hardest things when crossing the Atlantic is actually to return to the world of civilization. Having spent an incredible amount at the sea, it's understandable that you must follow what is called like an adjusting phase. Now, before like we even started recording this episode, you and I compared like cities where we have been and we work. Like you already say like you were like in Singapore, then you came to the States, then you passed like to Amsterdam, came back to the States. So every time you tune on and off these kind of like chapters in your life, you had to go through an adjusting phase. What kind of like work you do on yourself to adjust to a new phase in your life? Like, is there anything that you do, like that you pick up, any habits that you try to maintain, or like to not completely unbalance yourself? Because I noticed with me having changed like 8 different cities over the course of like 15 years, at one point it truly like unbalanced me. It threw me off. There was a couple of years where I wasn't self-aware of the space I occupy on this earth. It was like really weird.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think it's difficult because every time you move, you need to like sort of relearn things, right? And also, you leave people behind. Sometimes it's like, oh, need to make new friends. Not just the advertising, because you need to know how that agency works. You know, what's the style. But I think you have to keep with yourself two or three things in your mind that are always constant. With me, it's always been my family. You know, even if we're far or they come to visit me, I go. I think having a good connection with your family is really important. For me, it's been a second. Rolo, that is my creative partner. I didn't do it by myself. We've always done it together. So that
Mm.
sort of balances our. I think we work good together because I balance what he can do well, and he balances what I can do well. So we sort of like it doesn't hurt that much when you go together, right? So let's gonna learn. We're gonna be
Actually,
together.
much better because, as I say, to me happened because I've done this on my own. I never really had a partner as like a stable partner. So it was always like when you do it on your own, it truly like it can be very challenging. Yeah.
Is definitely. I don't know if I would be able to do it by myself, but I think it just felt like. Also, I think by growing up, going back to my roots, going back to Peru, I always had the idea of traveling and seeing new places and different. You always see it with a face of optimism, you know. So like you never see, oh, I'm moving somewhere. You see, oh, I'm gonna experience something new. What's the worst that can happen? Ah, maybe they fire me, but then I go back. You get with a new experience. So like every time we took that, I would say naivety, a
Mhm.
little bit of being an optimism of being Peruvian that for us allows us to, and for me, to travel. I think that thing, and obviously Bocce, the tank, that's something constant.
Yeah, but
Uh,
do me a favor, though. Do me a favor. Just like it's bocce. It's not bocce. I had to correct you because you're Italian.
yes,
If you were American, I would let it go. But please don't say bocce. Just like it's bocce. Bocce.
Boccia.
You're Italian, so you
Sì,
have
sì, sì.
to learn the proper way. It's bocce. It's not bocce.
Boccia.
Bocce.
But getting things like that, no, like for me, started with soccer, obviously football,
Right.
and then translated to boccia as I became a little older. Uh, but it's a constant that you can keep playing, and you can keep doing things that can come with you everywhere you go.
So is the playing bocce? Is it something that's it's constant in your life? So it doesn't matter if you are in Amsterdam or you are like in the States, you always trying to find, if you move to a different country tomorrow, you probably, one of the next things you're going to do, trying to find a club where they play bocce.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Now I'm excited. Obviously, I'm going this year, really honored to go to Cannes as a jury.
Yeah.
I'm going to judge business transformation. But I'm bringing my set of bull.
And there you
Yeah,
go, the sand, the play bocce like Rosette, man.
it's I know already the parks where to play. So like
My
it's even like
God.
the first thing I see when I travel. And now my bags are getting heavier because I bring sometimes two sets, different bull. So it's a bit of a interesting hobby.
Okay, good. Look, I got this question from Dire Straits, which was like an English band that I love to death. And there was a line from Telegraph Road, one of the masterpiece of them, and say, then came the churches, then came the schools, then came the lawyers, then came the rule. So Telegraph Road is this masterpiece. I think it's like a 10-minute song with an amazing like guitar solo from Mark Knopfler. And it's about the story about this road that's it existed. It was actually a road that connected one part of America, like you could travel like through bus. And it's a sad story about the developments of America and the ruining one man dream, which was Telegraph Roads. Do you think that something similar happened to advertising over the years? Do you think that like you were born in 1983, you probably start working like in the late 90s. Looking back, do you think that there is a dream that got ruined somehow, or it's just like natural evolution? You
That's
think
interesting.
that at one point the church and the rules and the lawyers came and fucked it all up?
Um, I I don't know. I think it's just changing. I don't think. I also don't have. I mean, I heard stories from friends that obviously years before it was more glamorous and you had bigger productions, and it was all this like it was seen almost like being a film director or things like that. I do think it just changed. Advertising is so related to culture. You know, at least the best one is so related to what's happening now that it will shape according to how the culture evolves. No, and I think now we're on a culture that is a little more. Things are fast, things are quick, things are like social, and like they become like a hit or not really fast. It's almost like we need like
You think
fast.
the craft got, because sometimes I do think that craft got a huge hit. And when I say craft, that means like film craft. I do think that's like, with the fact that content is becoming so accessible, and the average production of content has been increasingly improving. Like, to be honest, there is a lot of like YouTubers and influencers that are quite good at assembling like, videos like on the go. But at the same time, when you look at the level of films across the landscape of like, internationally, compared to what it was a few years
Oh, yeah.
before, I think the craft got hit really bad. I think there is a less love for the craft. It's undeniable. There is less time. There is like less. I don't think right now, and I've said this already, like on this podcast. I don't think that's a film like those beautiful Guinness film that
Yeah,
we loved.
Stellar
Or
Trois.
I don't think they can be done today. And I tell you even more, it's not even that. I don't think that can be. I don't think that people would love them today. They don't love them as much as we did. Uh, the love for the craft has changed. That's what, like, what's considered like, uh, good is not what was considered good back then to me.
Yeah,
It's like, yeah.
it definitely it's the quantity and the quality obviously decreased. Like before, you used to see really great films. Like I remember checking the film reel of the winners in Cannes and the Lia. Like they were fantastic. A lot of really great work. Now you maybe see one or two that are like great, and it changed. I think it becomes now a little more. When you see it, you're like so excited because you didn't see that in
And,
such a
and
long.
this comes like, this comes from me. I'm a film lover. I'm a movie junkie. So of course, like, I'm biased when it's about film. And I grew up like honestly writing scripts and doing commercial. That was and has been my bread and butter in advertising. Like, um, but yeah, when I look at it, it's like as you say, like I don't think there is the same love for craft. There is no time to have that kind of love, and the circumstances have completely changed.
Yeah,
um
it's more a content creator economy, no? Where someone with their phone creates something. It definitely has more access, but you lose
yes.
the ability of seeing this video. It become more special, no? It's almost like now making a bad parallel, but it's almost like eating meat. Like before you get meat every, like now it's like it's not so good for you. So you're like, but okay, if I'm gonna eat steak, I'm gonna eat it once a month, and it's gonna be
Yeah.
fantastic and perfect. And I think now when you the thing now is when you do see a beautiful film, everyone is like excited because
Because it's
definitely
rare. It's a
it's
rarity.
rare. It's rare.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this question. There is an area of ocean called Midnight Zone. I don't know if you know. It's very deep and it cannot be penetrated by sunlight. Unlike the Twilight Zone, which may appear like pitch black to the naked eye, but still has like, the capability of receiving lights, the Midnight Zone is truly like where light go dark, go to die. A transatlantic, we believe that everybody's an ocean. So my question for you is very like psychological and human. Like, what is your midnight zone if you have one?
Wow, interesting. Do you mean by the darkness or by the?
The darkness, what it does look like? Your
I,
midnight zone. Do you have a midnight zone? Like, um,
I think for when everything goes completely dark, for me, it's a little bit on the scary part. I would say, I sort of translate it into something more scary. I think now, definitely when we're on a we're now not the advertising employees, creative directors at an agency or I think before we would be like, yeah, you're in an agency. They'll deal with the problems. You'll just have to come up with a good idea.
guys,
That's
your
it.
midnight zone now.
And now we own a business, so it's a different. I
Right.
think the dark night hit me at night. It's like, okay, we need to make this project happen. We need to do this. We need to be a little. I'm gonna wake up tomorrow really early because I need to go through this and this and make sure because it's a different way. It's like something we've created. It's a business also. We have little employees, but they all are fed through the company, so it needs to perform well to give enough food for everyone, stability. New York is not cheap, but still there's that. I think it's good to have that because the moment you feel too comfortable, even creatively, even not for business owners, the moment you don't have that dark, scary moment, you just become too comfortable. And I think comfort is the worst enemy creative people
Yeah.
could have. They don't reinvent themselves. They don't. They think they've done all. Maybe they think they, and then is when you start repeating yourself. And
Yeah.
and I think us we're always on the dark side. Scary. We're always scared. Uh, Makes us obviously realize, but also again I think it also carries a lot of I'll tell you a little thing that when I moved to Singapore from South America, it was really, in South America, in Peru, especially when you grew up, wasn't that safe. So you will normally take 5 steps and then you will turn around to see if someone is following you to take your wallet or something. So like move to Singapore, that is the safest city in the world. I'll be like walking 5 feet and then turning around all the time. People think I'm crazy. So that little scary thing is always good
Right. Right.
in your career, I think.
Good. Look, we came to the shore. So here's the question that we ask to all our guests. If there was a wind that blow your sail and a yacht to name it, what would the name be?
I think for me, it will be optimism. It will be
Optimist.
optimism. I think that I mean we whatever could happen, good or bad, something that characterized me and now characterize the agencies to always be optimist. Think that there's something beyond. You can have good, bad days when you work, but things can change. And if you keep that hard work and the optimism and being aware, and available for the opportunities. I think sometimes we let go a lot of opportunities just because we're not optimist about them.
Yeah.
And I think
And
people,
I read once that it's all about like our existence is pretty much like function like through waves. They are magnetic field. There are waves. That seems like very psychedelic, but to be optimistic is actually to place yourself in the wave of optimism. So as you are traveling as an object, like through this wave, imagine like if it was like almost like a channeling this road, you gonna face and you're gonna be welcome with more and more positive things because you set yourself up already for success by putting yourself in this wave. Where if you think negative, you are now switching lane as if you were in a freeway and you are going into a different wave, a different path. And as you go through that path, more negative things happen to you. So to think optimistic, it's quite powerful, and it can truly help manifest like good things in life. So
yeah,
Giancarlo, thank you so much for this appearance of transatlantic, and again congratulations for like the awards of being like creative person of the year. I think you totally deserve it. I mean I love you guys like with the works you do, and And please continue play bocce for us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and I'm always following Transatlantic, and the great the great creative leaders you bring. Always I follow, admire. So I feel honored to be on the seat today on the on the little boat from Peru.
Okay, man. Bye bye.
Ciao, ciao.